Hello, this is Laura. Welcome to the Beanbird 2 channel. This is a channel where we talk about testimonies and walking out faith. Today I have a testimony of tithing for you, and this one is a longer one, and I had written it out, and I'm going to do things a little differently this time, and I'm actually going to read it, mostly because it is a long testimony and I have my thoughts organized, and I think if I just speak it by looking at the camera that I might remember certain things or forget things, and I don't want to leave anything out. So I'm going to read it, and hopefully you'll be blessed by hearing this tithing testimony. Here goes. David and I were married. We had just gone through the 2008 housing crash, and we short sold our home due to a combination of the economy and bad financial decisions that my husband had made pre-saved life. Through it all, the Lord was with us. We were tithing and trusting in the Lord and praying. We found an amazing townhouse that met all of our needs, that was a great location, and we were able to qualify for the rent there despite the short sale. We were told that if we worked really hard with a credit restoration company, that we could save and be eligible to buy a house again in 3 years. We immediately began to work towards that goal. David accepted a new job in Charlotte, and the Lord opened every door possible for us to get from Michigan into North Carolina. It was such a move of God. His work paid for the move on a corporate credit card, and we found an amazing 6-bedroom rental house in Indian Trail that was clean, fairly new, and it was in great condition. The rental felt like a dream come true. It was amazing how wonderful it was to live in a low-priced rental that was in a good neighborhood, and it was a very good deal overall. The plan was that we would live there for 3 years and then buy a house before our firstborn child would start kindergarten. We began to be very intentional about saving the money that we needed for a down payment to buy a home again. Then there was a sudden turn of events. We received a letter in the mail that the owners of the rental house that wanted their house back. They had moved to Oklahoma, but things weren't working out for them there, and so they wanted to move back to North Carolina as soon as possible. They would not be doing a lease renewal. We were 2 years into our credit restoration, and we still had 1 more year before we would be able to qualify to finance a house again. David had been doing his best efforts to save money, but he wasn't sure if we would have the down payment money needed to buy a house again when the time came. We were feeling disillusioned, that we didn't think this could possibly be the end of our story. We were doing all the right things. The Lord promised that He would provide for us, and now we were in a position of having to move again when we had 3 little ones at home. We had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and one that was under a year. It didn't seem to add up to me that the Lord would bring us this far only to have us move again. The mail came with the tax statement from the church. Normally, I do not open mail addressed to David. He handles all the financial mail. However, this time I felt the Lord was prompting me to open the letter. I opened it and I saw the yearly giving statement was certainly not a tithe given to the church. Not even close to 10% of our income. At first, I thought it was a mistake from the church office. When David came home from work, I asked him about it, and he confessed that he had stopped the tithe in order to save money for the future house. He thought that by not tithing, he could use the tithe money to save for that down payment. At first, I flipped out. I was like, "Are you kidding? This is our insurance policy." Because it is true that when you tithe to God, the 10%, we give that because we trust that God can meet our needs better than we can meet our own needs. And when we tithe, we're saying, "Lord, I believe that you can manage my life better than me. I believe that you can provide better than me. And I believe that you want what's good for me." And that's what tithing represents. And it takes trust and faith. So back to the story. I told David that these things were happening because we were robbing God of our tithe. David was a newer believer than me, and I can certainly look back and see why as a man he would feel the need to prioritize housing so high. Because when he was a kid, he had to move every year of his life. He didn't want his kids to live that way. Our oldest was 3 years old, and we were already at our 3rd address with him. David felt convicted and he restarted the tithe, and we began to pray for God to meet our needs. We still needed a new rental place. David said that if we could keep the rent on our next house low, maybe in the $500 a month range, we could still save enough money to have a down payment for a house when the time came. I started looking at the lowest price rental houses, and I wasn't even really looking at apartments because we had 3 kids and there were 5 of us, and I thought a house was going to be more size appropriate for everybody that we had. The stuff I was looking at that was available in Charlotte was run down and dirty, and the properties were unkempt. And then I thought I heard the Lord say, "Why are you looking for what I have for you among the rubble?" Then I decided to stop imposing what I thought things should look like and give it all to God. We started looking at some houses that were for sale. I thought maybe God would open a door for us to finance earlier than we were supposed to be allowed to. I didn't want to limit what God was going to do for us. So we found a house that we liked that was for sale. We decided that we would drive to it in faith and we would pray there. And when we pulled up, we saw the house was empty. As a family, we went on the back deck of this dream house and we began to pray, "Lord, help provide a home for us. We'll trust in you." When we were done praying, we went back home. Pretty soon after settling in from the trip of that house prayer, the doorbell rang, and it was our neighbor from across the street, and he asked to come in. And he said that he and his wife were very sorry to hear that we were going to be moving out soon, and he felt impressed upon his heart that he should give us an offer to live in their own house, because they had 2 homes. They had one across the street from us, but they also had a summer house in Ohio near their grandkids. He said he was impressed by how David had kept up the lawn of the home that we were in. And he said, the way that you take care of a rental shows David's integrity as a man. He said, what you can do is you can put all your stuff in boxes and you can put it into our garage. And then you can use our belongings, our linens, our furniture, silverware, kitchen towels. Just use all of our stuff in the house. That way, when it's time for you to move again, you won't have to pack up the boxes twice. You'll be able to just take what you have and put it in the moving truck again and save the whole packing and unpacking thing. They even had toys in a toy room from their own grandkids that we could play with. The kids could play with. So he would appreciate it, and if in exchange, David would maintain his yard for him while they were in Ohio. He said in exchange that he would give us a really low rent. He said, "I don't know what works for you, but I was thinking maybe $500 a month." We were amazed when he said $500 a month, because that is the same amount that David had said we needed our rent to be in order to reach the amount that we would need for a down payment when the time came for us to finance again. It was such a God thing. We were celebrating and praising the Lord afterward for his provision. It was a real life example to the kids about how we prayed and put our trust in the Lord, and then they were able to see how the Lord answered. And we did just as it was arranged. We moved all our stuff across the street from our previous rental into their garage. We were able to use all their things while we waited for the time to elapse for us to finance again, and then we were able to move out into a home that we were able to buy at the appointed time. And what an amazing story. I think that a lot of times when we feel like money is tight, there is a temptation there. It's very real for people to think like, hey, if I just hold on to the tithe, hold back from that, and I can use that to pay my credit card, or I can use that to pay my debts. But when we asked the Lord to intervene and we said, "Lord, you know our needs. We need a place to live," not only did he provide a place that was the right price, but it was a beautiful home, and it was right across the street, and it didn't disrupt my kids' lives. They already were familiar with the neighborhood, and they didn't have to move to a whole new location, and it was just this perfect, beautiful transition. It benefited us and it benefited them because they didn't want their house to be vacant while they were in Ohio anyway. And then my husband maintained their lawn, and when we went to move out from their house, we spent a week cleaning it, shampooing the carpets, and we made sure to leave the house in pristine condition so that when they came back to their house that they had no regrets in allowing us to use their things. And I am amazed how God will impress on people's hearts to move when we pray. And the Lord worked in our heart and the Lord worked in their heart. And every time, if things get tight or tough, or if we're in a situation where we're in need, I do reflect on these times when I remember the Lord's provision in the past. And so I hope that story is uplifting to you and just a reminder that God has our best interest in heart. And He loves us so much. He loves you so much. And you can trust Him because He cares for you. That's what I have for today. So thank you. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like it, subscribe to continue to hear more testimonies and ways that the Lord works in walking out faith, and share a comment, maybe something that God did in your life. Thank you.